What happens if you put a dictator in a bathtub and travel him through space and time to the French Revolution? You get Jean-Paul Marat, an 18th century Frenchman, and creating propaganda as powerful as Stalin and Mao's. Marat was a Prussian-born Frenchman who became a scientist in France. Over time, he grew to hate the French government. When the revolution started, he began political writings, which radicalized his audience, causing terror. He had to live on the run and went into hiding in the sewers, which caused his infamous disease. He's described as a horribly ugly little man, almost a dwarf, and also a bit insane. So who was this guy with this strange life? Keep watching to find out. Jean-Paul Marat was born on May 24, 1743, the youngest surviving child of a middle-class family. He was born in Boudry, a Prussian principality that later joined Switzerland. His father was French, and he came to Prussia to avoid persecution of his Protestant religion. Marat's father, though well-educated, was rejected from several colleges due to his religion. There's not a lot of information known about Marat's childhood, but we do know he left his family at 16 in order to seek fame and become a doctor. Now, before we move on with Marat's adulthood, let's learn what was happening in France during the time, which it wasn't too good. King Louis XVI became king in 1774, but he was a notoriously weak leader. He decided to fund the American Revolution to weaken the British. He won, but it made him broke, so he did what most would do and taxed the poor to a ridiculous amount. There was a church tax, a wine tax, an infrastructure tax, a military tax, more land, more taxes tax, a tax on imported goods, a farm tax, a salt tax, a tax for children who as young as 9 who didn't buy enough salt, a head tax, many days where you had to work for free, a literal tax on light, and so much more. And then there was a bunch of horrible droughts, and the poor started questioning whether the system they lived in was acceptable, especially in this time of Reformation. The French class system consisted of 3 estates: the clergy, the nobility, and everybody else. The first estate was the clergy, who was really rich, in charge of the church, and paid little to no taxes. The second estate was the nobility, who were really rich, ruled the land, and paid little taxes. The other 98% of the population was the third estate, everybody else. They were given the heap of taxes, were very poor, and could barely sustain themselves. This was a situation really well suited for revolution. Cut back to Marat, who after traveling a bit, settled in Paris, and became a successful scientist. He was appointed to the royal physician to the youngest brother of Louis XVI. He also did some research in science, and tried to get his results into the French Academy of Sciences, but his request was denied. He believed this was a conspiracy where people in charge of him were keeping him from higher positions. The revolution broke out in his hometown of Paris in 1789. Marat, in support of the revolution, put his science work on hold to start writing political pamphlets. His writings created a fan base around him, and his radical views that grew extremely large and caused the radical Jacobin political party's popularities to soar through the roof, a political party with extremely similar views to Marat. In his most famous pamphlet series, L'Ami du Peuple, he wrote, "This paper, the only one truly concentrated to the salvation of the fatherland, is more necessary than ever." He thought instilling a temporary dictatorship would instill justice in France. He warned his readers that the loyalists will rise up against the revolutionaries, and so to be prepared, inciting fear in his readers. A few more days of indecision, and there will be no more time to come out of your lethargy. Death will surprise you in the very arms of sleep. Jean-Paul Marat was a very left-leaning figure, and said multiple times in his paper that he had only the strongest loyalty to the people. The rejection of his scientific work into the Academy of Sciences actually helped Marat. His despise for people richer and more powerful than him made him more relatable to the populace. The writing in Marat's pamphlets actually mirrored some of the ways 20th century dictators created fear and chaos. Jean-Paul Marat's conspiracies actually became true because of his writings. He got arrested multiple times, and even had to flee from France one time to Britain. He published his journal intermittently, which helped the government not know where he was at most times. After he returned from Britain, he had to hide in the sewers that ended up causing a skin condition, which will be mentioned later. Once King Louis XVI got deposed in 1792, Marat was voted in for the position of legislator. He's suspected for helping cause the September Massacre. While Marat didn't directly start it, his vocal enthusiasm made people very suspicious of his involvement. He attacked the moderate Girondin party with his writings and vocally in government. He eventually managed to get the leaders of the party arrested. His success ironically led to his downfall. Charlotte Corday, a conservative with opposing beliefs, despised Jean-Paul Marat. She wanted to hold him accountable for the September Massacres, and she plotted to kill him. She traveled to Paris to Marat's home, where he was soothing his pain from his skin condition in the bathtub. He heard there was someone downstairs with a list of important enemies to add to his next set of writings. Charlotte was invited upstairs, where she shared information about several of his enemies. This was all just a big tease, as when she was done, she got up, took out her knife, and stabbed him in the chest, killing Jean-Paul Marat instantly. She did not attempt to flee the murder scene. At her trial, she said she killed one man to save 100,000. She was so proud of what she'd done that she had her own portrait painted before she faced the guillotine, which was on July 17, 1793, just 4 days after Jean-Paul Marat died. Charlotte's murder of Marat did not cause the outcome she wanted. Marat's death supported his own writings of building fear and distrust, fueling the revolutionary cause. The Jacobin political party was gaining power at the time and made Marat a martyr. It was easy to dehumanize the conservatives by showing just how violent and evil they were. For example, just a few months after Marat's death, a famous painter of the day created this painting called Le Mot de Marat. Leaders who supported Marat's revolutionary cause ordered copies of this painting to be used as propaganda. The painting shows Marat's martyr status. There's no sign of his terrible skin disease, and there's a glowing light from above, shining down on Marat's body and face. Later, the Jacobin party, Robespierre, carried out Marat's ideology until his death, in what's called the Reign of Terror. Ever since his death, scientists have been wondering about the origin and what Marat's skin condition is. Marat blames the time he was hiding in the sewers as the origin of his skin condition. Some scientists managed to get a hold of Marat's DNA, and they reported that Marat may have suffered from a fungal infection, subsequently superinfected with bacteria, which led to an itchy condition called seborrheic dermatitis. Right now, that's the most likely cause of what it was. One thing that was for sure, though, the bathtub was Marat's only escape. Jean-Paul Marat was and still is a controversial figure. Marat was no doubt a great influence on the horrors of the French Revolution. His intentions are not questioned. He wholeheartedly believed the patriotic view that the goal was more important than the lives that could be lost. It's up to you. Well, whether you believe he was a bad guy or a good guy, take the stuff you learned from this video and formulate your own opinion. It is your opinion, after all. Merci beaucoup d'avoir regardé mon présentation en français.